Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to integrate Stripe into your React Native app. And Stripe recently released a official React Native package by the team themselves, and this package is quite neat. And previously it was a little bit cumbersome, at least in my opinion, to integrate Stripe even into your app. But with this new package, it has become a lot easier. Okay, so on the screen right now, you can see I have bootstrapped a new app and I have all this boilerplate in my app.tsx file. And I'm going to clear this out a little later, but now I'm just going to do some initial steps. And the first step is going to be to add the package. So I'm going to do yarn add Stripe, Stripe React Native. Okay, and since I'm going to be running the iOS simulator, and because I have a fresh new project here, I need to do a few more steps to get it working. The first step is to go into my pod file here, and then set the minimum iOS requirement here from 10 to 11. Okay. And the next step is going to be to open up Xcode. So to do that, I'm going to open up the iOS folder here and double click on the workspace file. All right, after I'm inside Xcode, I need to do two things. And the first thing is to go to my project here on the left and then right click and then press add file. And I'm just going to add a empty Swift file here. So I'm going to mark Swift file, press next, and then press create here. And then I'm going to say yes to create a bridging header here. After that's done, I need to do a last step, and that is to click on my project here, and then instead of the target here, I'm going to press the project here, then go into build settings. And inside build settings, I need to change the library search paths down here. You can see currently it's pointing at some Swift files, and I just need to remove that. And I can do that by pressing the minus here. So all that's left is this inherited option. Okay. After that, I should be able to build a project. So I'm actually just gonna close Xcode again and try to run it from the command line here. Oh, and actually before I run this, I need to make sure I do pod install. After doing pod install, I can try to run the simulator. All right, after the app has been built, you should see the screen on the right, and that means everything has been compiled and it's working. And now is the time for us to clear out this app file so we don't have all this boilerplate. And yeah, I'm going to use one of my snippets here to create an empty component. And let's just call it app. And since this is the root, I'm just going to do an add default export. So export default app. All right. And here, I'm just going to put a save area view since I'm on iOS. I want to make sure everything is inside here. All right. Now is the time where we would like to leverage some of these Stripe components. And the first component that we're interested in is the provider. So down here, I can put in Stripe provider. And the Stripe provider takes a publishable key. So this is your uh, basically your public key, either test key or live key, doesn't matter. And then you can also put in a merchant identifier. I'm just gonna put in whatever here, it doesn't matter too much for this demo. All right, after you have this Stripe provider, which probably should be before the safe area view, we can start to render out a card component. Okay, so below this app component, I'm going to create a new one because we cannot put in Stripe components when we're using provider in the same component. We need to add it as a child. So I'm going to create a component here, and I'm just going to call it Stripe test, and I'm going to put it in the same file because we won't be putting too much in here, and I think it gives a better overview for you guys if I just put everything here. Okay, so in here we are going to return a view, and inside this view we're going to have a card field. Okay, and this card field is a component from Stripe React Native, and this card field takes a few props. I'm gonna put in a little bit of styling here. I'm gonna put in height 500 or 50 even. I'm gonna put a width of 100%. And I'm also gonna pass in postal code enable. I'm just gonna set that one to false. So we won't be picking up the postal code on the checkout. All right. Now that should be all for the card field. I'm gonna also add in a button that says pay now. And it's complaining because I didn't have an on press here. So I'm gonna pass in a function name here. Just gonna call handle payment. And that's gonna be a function up here. And for now, I'm just gonna leave it empty. Okay, cool. Let's try to render it out. So in my safe area view, I'm gonna put in Stripe test here. And it says a cat. Oh, I did call it Stripe text. I wanted to call it Stripe test. Okay, cool. So now we actually have the card component up here. Oh, okay, cool. And we have our pay now button. So that looks quite okay. Now we need to do a few more things to get a payment running. And one of them is we need to expose a confirm payment method from Stripe. And for that, we can use the use Stripe hook. So this is a React hook coming from the Stripe library. And this one has a bunch of things here. Creating a token, checking if Apple Pay is supported, and so on. But the one we're interested in is confirm payment. So this one inside handle payment, we can call it. But we are missing some things here to actually do this. So in the docs, it looks like you can just call confirm payment like this, but you actually need to add a backend component to your app before you can do it. So that's kind of the next step of this. So to create the most simple backend you can imagine, I will just define it inside this project in this folder. I'm going to call it API. And in this API folder, I'm just going to jump into that. And in here, I'm going to call npm init. I'm going to pass the Y flag to get it up and running immediately. And in here, I'm going to pull in some libraries that's going to make defining our API very smooth and also type safe. So in here, I'm going to call npm install TypeScript Express, types Express, Stripe, and NodeMon, and then TS Node. And you might think this is quite a bunch of libraries, but we're already using TypeScript in our React Native apps, so we also want to use that for the backend, of course. And Express is used for just defining APIs very fast and very easily. And then we have nodemon and TS node to restart our server whenever we make a change. And last but not least, Stripe, so we can do the Stripe stuff on the backend. So inside our API folder, we can define an index TS file. And in here, we can do all our backend related stuff. And this code is going to be quite simple, so should be good. So the first thing we want to do is import Express from Express. And then we want to import Stripe from Stripe. Okay? With those two packages, we can first of all initialize Stripe. So here we can do a new Stripe, and then we can pass in our secret key. Secret key goes here, and then it also takes a configuration object here. One of them is the API version, and I don't really know what the API version is. So if I trigger a autocomplete here, it would even say which one is the latest one. So I'm just gonna grab that one. And I'm gonna set TypeScript to true because I'm using TypeScript. Cool. Now, next step is to call Express. This is gonna bootstrap our API, you could say. And then I'm gonna call an app. I'm gonna use the Express JSON middleware. And that is just to say that, hey, we want to create a JSON API. Next, I'm going to create an endpoint, and that's going to be a post endpoint, and this is the only endpoint I'm going to create. And I'm just going to call it create payment intent, because when we are doing payments with Stripe, we need to make a payment intent on the backend. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do here, basically. So in here, we're going to have an async function with a request and a response. And I'm going to create a payment intent. And I can do that with the Stripe library. So I can do await Stripe, then do payment. Oh, sorry, is it right? No, something is not right. This one needs to be capital S. Yeah, yes. And now I should be able to access payment intents. And on payment intent, I can call create. And in payment intent, I need to give what's the amount? How much money am I charging? I can just put 5,000 there now. That's going to be $50, saying our currency is US dollars. Okay. And that is actually all. Now we can send back the payment intent client secret. To do that, we access the response object we call send. And here we can put a JSON. So I'm just going to create a very simple one, like an object here, where I call it client secret, and then I can access payment intent, client secret, like this. Okay, that's our endpoint. Now we just need to set our server live, and I'm going to do it on port 3000. And yeah, I'm just going to pass in a callback here that says we're running, so I know it's working. And last step is go to our package.json just to make things a little more neat. That's called nodemon on index.tsx here. So now if I go down here, I should be able to just say yarn start. Yeah, it was a start script, so I can do yarn start. And that should open up our API if everything is running. And it seems like it is. So now I can return to my front end here, to my React Native app. And I can call this API, get that secret, and confirm my payment. Okay? So the way I do this is I'm going to use fetch to reach the endpoint. And the endpoint is at localhost 3000 currently. and I'm accessing the create payment intent here, and I'm using a post method. Okay, and I'm just gonna, oh, actually, what's important here is that when you're creating a payment intent, you can save a little bit of time by calling it inside a use effect. So instead of putting it inside handle payment, I'm going to create a use effect, and I'm going to pass in an empty dependency array. So as soon as this Stripe test component is loaded, I'm going to call the API. So in here, I'm going to tag a then on top of my fetch, and I'm just going to take the response and then JSON the body and call another then. In here, I am going to grab that secret. Okay, so let me just define our intent here. So our intent is going to be res, and since we don't know how that looks, we need to typecast it here. So it's going to be a client secret object, or it's going to be an object with a key called client secret, and that's going to be a string, right? That's how that one. That's how that one's going to look. Oh, we can see we got an error here, and that is because this endpoint or this function actually ran and it saw that we're not using a proper API key. So I'm going to fill in a proper API key at the end so you can see that it at least works. Okay, so after the intent here is to find a new variable, you don't have to, but after that we could put it inside state or in a ref. I'm just going to put it inside state. So up here I can call use state, call it key. In here I can then call set key and then pass in the intent client secret here. So now I have my key in my state. So now down here in handle payment, I can pass in, oh, let me see, handle payment, I can pass in the key, and then as a second parameter, it takes in a configuration object. Here I can say that I'm doing a card payment, and I could pass in extra details such as the email here if I wanted to, like something here in case I had more information, which I probably will have. Okay, so let's make this into an async function and then do an await on confirm payment and then check on what we get back. So we might get an error, right? And we may not. So we need to check if we get that error. If we do get an error, we can show an alert that says error, and then we can print that error message. And if there's no error, well, then our payment was successful. So we can print a message that says payment successful. Okay, so this is actually all we need to do. Now we are ready to do our first payment. And yeah, I'm just going to be filling in um, the a public key here and a secret key here. And then let's try to run it and see if it works. Put in a public key and a private key that is valid keys. And if you're not sure how to get one, you just go on Stripe's website and sign up and grab one basically. And yeah, let's try to do a test here. So let's actually do a console log just to check if we're getting the intent here. So let's just print out the response we get from the API, refresh it, and perhaps we need to do a hard refresh here. No, we don't. I can see that we are getting it actually. So let's do an alert instead so you guys can see it. Let's do a res here. So now you can see that I'm getting it, but I'm getting a error because I just tried to print a JSON object. So let's alert on rest on intent instead. Client secret. Okay. So now you can see I get the key here, and let me use one of Stripe's test cards. Put in the card number, the month, and the year, then a CVC number, and then I can press pay now. And here it actually says your card's expiration year is invalid. So that's actually great that that's working. So let's put one valid in. Month, year. So year should be 24 perhaps, right? CVC can be anything with the test card, I believe. So let's press pay now, and then we get the payment successful. Okay, so that's how it works. And yeah, if you have the Stripe dashboard open, you should be able to see the charge there in the dashboard. And of course, if you want to do another flow, this is a custom flow. Let me just find documentation here. All right, so we did this card element only flow here, where we get just the card element, then we style the rest of the stuff ourselves. But if we just want this pre-built UI, which looks quite neat in my opinion, we can also just use that. And we do the exact same thing, but instead of rendering out our card element, we use a let me check. What is it called? I believe we just use this present payment sheet function that we can grab from the Stripe library. So same procedure, but yeah, a little different in terms of what we render in the end. Okay, so yeah, that's all. Check out this documentation. It's great if you want to get started in this video. Couldn't get you to the end. Okay. All right. Peace.